Well, I have to say thank you, Miss Cheryl, and thank you, Miss Betsy, which Miss Betsy had to leave, but they've been so helpful in getting all these PowerPoints and everything done, and thank you. Thanks for letting me come today and be a part of your class. I do want to share a scripture. I want to thank you, too. That was a beautiful prayer. I felt peace when you prayed that. Thank you. So I heard the scripture this morning, and I loved it. I want to share this. It's from Psalms 84. Starts with verse 5. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. Isn't that beautiful? I was like, what is that valley of Baca? And it said it's kind of known as sometimes a representative of sorrows. And I am the founder of Brews Coffee House. And Brews and my work has been going on since for a little over 20 years. But as I'm nearing 61 now, and I think that some of you can kind of relate in this, I feel like I'm in the last stretch. You know, like maybe I have 30 years left. But I'm not where I was in my 40s. And so going from strength to strength, preparing people behind me to catch the torch and keep running in Oklahoma to make changes. Because we've made great strides in the last few years when it comes to criminal justice reform. And I'm so thankful that God's let me be a part of that. And so I started an organization called Brews back in about 2008. And I'm going to share a little bit of our story. So I am a previously incarcerated mother, daughter, grandmother. I'm a previously incarcerated woman. And I was sentenced to prison in 2002 with a 10-year sentence for drugs. And drugs ruined my life. I became a drug addict at the age of 12 years old. And people go, how did that happen? Well, it was not intentional. I was telling Miss Cheryl, I never thought, it had never thought one moment in my mind I didn't even know what a drug addict was, let alone did I think I'd become one. But at 12, my life was in complete turmoil. At 9 years old, my dad walked out on his family, and my heart was broken. And because I wanted to be a daddy's girl, I worshiped the ground my dad walked on. And so then pretty soon my mom remarried to help get us out of the financial crisis we were in. But she married a violent alcoholic, so life wasn't getting any smoother. I had been a majorette. I grew up in South Louisiana with my dad. I was a majorette. And my life was on one path, and now all of a sudden I'm living in Texas. I'm having to make new friends. And my stepdad, he will not let me twirl. He wants me to play soccer. Soccer is a good sport unless you're afraid of the ball. That was not a very good experience. And so, but my team was great. And so one day we made it to the state championship playoffs in Dallas, Texas. It was a big night. And all I could do was lay by the trash can sick. So she innocently gave me a Valium to help my stomach. But I rose up from that trash can and I took that soccer field by force. I did. It gave me confidence I had lost. I scored 3 scores that night. I was unstoppable. And I swore I would never lose that feeling again. So that became my hell for the next 37, from 12 to 37. I went from straight A's to straight F's. I got kicked out of school. My attitude changed. Everything changed about me. And there was no stopping me. I married. I had children. And there still was no stopping me. The only time I did not do drugs is when I was pregnant. Other than that, I would remain a drug addict until I was sentenced to prison. And I put my children, I put my whole family through complete hell and really broke my children's hearts, broke their lives. The one person they were really supposed to be able to trust, I was definitely not trustworthy. So I did meet a lady that did prison ministry when I was incarcerated, and she lived in Tulsa, and she became my mentor, and she really led me to a ministry called Stand in the Gap. And at Stand in the Gap, I had a team of mentors. You know, Stand in the Gap, we've done a lot of things in this room right here. But with, because we've had luncheons at your church. Your church has been so grateful to host us. But these mentors came into my life, and they taught me how to live beyond addiction. And with their help, I ended up getting my children back. I married, well, can I say an amazing man married me? I'm like, I couldn't even believe a man of this character would marry someone like me. But he did. And now we've been married for like 19 years, and he's still my very best friend. He's never called me anything but his bride. I'm like, it's so foreign to anything I've ever had. But when we married and I had my children back, he moved me into a beautiful home. We had a pool. And one day he said, you have a dream inside you. And I'm like, no. I said, you like to grill. So I have a husband that cooks. I have children in the pool. I have a good job. Honey, I'm living the dream. I don't have any dreams inside me. This is it. Addicts don't dream, they survive, and this is all I ever wanted. And he said, I want you to pray about it, because I believe that you've got something to do. And so I was like, okay. And then I prayed, and I said, you know what? I know what I'm supposed to do. And he said, okay. I said, I'm supposed to open a house. I need to open a house because I am going to go back and get moms out. I'm going to go be the mentor that came into the prison. I'm going to go in and get the women, and I'm going to bring them out, and I'm going to bring them to a community, and I'm going to bring them to a safe church, and I'm going to bring them to housing, and we're going to go get their kids, and their children are going to get their moms back, like my children got their moms back. Because if you know statistics in Oklahoma, we have close to 30,000 children with an incarcerated parent. If you're familiar with ACE scores, when they do tests for children, if you test, 3 to 5, the chances of you being incarcerated are very high. And so some of the questions are, has there been substance abuse in your home? That's a point. Has one of your parents been incarcerated? Another point. Did domestic violence play a role in that? Another point. Did you have struggles in school? How do you not have troubles in school when your parents are incarcerated? 4. Okay, so 7 out of those close to 30,000 children, do you know 7 out of 10 of those children are destined? Destined, studied. We know it to be a fact. Destined to be our future inmates without an intervention. Okay? So I thought, I've been part of the problem for a long time. Now I'm going to be part of the solution. So with these mentors fueling me, I went to college. I had an 8th grade education. I went and got my GED, went to college, got a bachelor in social work, and began to fight in this state. And so, but my husband, being the sweet guy he is, he went to the bank and he bought me a little house to be a ministry home, to do what was done for me. Now I'm going to pay it forward. So fast forward 4 years. I went to him, I said, honey, this has been a great idea having this house. We live in Claremore. Everybody's predominantly Caucasian. They're predominantly middle class. Their people don't go to prison. I'm having a really hard time getting jobs for people. I'm going to start a business. And he said, your dreams are expensive. You only get one. He said, so I don't think you should start a business. And I didn't know there was a word called business plan or strategic plan. I just had an idea. I call it a God idea. I said, no, honey, I'm not going to ask you for any money on this dream. I'm going to make this happen. No, that didn't last long, but so I did, though. I went and rented a little booth in a little antique mall, and we started selling Folgers coffee, $1 a cup, because I knew if people would talk to the women and get to know them, that they would want to be their mentors, their Stand in the Gap teams, They would offer them employment opportunities, and these women were going to get their kids back, and we were going to be able to build a life. And so that started in 2008. And so here is, I'm going to do a little thing here. My why, our why. Most of our clients are justice impacted women. So as you see in this picture, up in this top, would be your top right corner for you. This is one of our clients, Chelsea. And Chelsea came to us addicted to opioids, county jail. She hadn't seen her mother in over 25 years. And she swore that she would not be the mom that she had had. And guess what? She became just that. Addicted mom. Her kids were being raised by the grandparents. And life was really a struggle. But Chelsea ended up getting on the path. She encountered Jesus Christ. She's worked at the coffee shop, and now she's gone on to be a homeowner. She's bought her own home. She has a great job. She actually has been an administrative assistant to the pastor at First Methodist Church in Claremore, and then went on to work for Council Oaks, and has done well for herself. She did get all of her children back, and probably about a month ago, she was contacted by a sister she never met, and her sister is in rehab, and said, this is her down on this far right corner right here. She'd never met her sister, and she ends up going to Arkansas to meet her sister, and in the meantime gets to meet her mom, which is that top corner. Now, can you imagine being separated from your mother for 25 years because of addiction? It's been a very generational thing. We know with addiction, we know with incarceration, it's very generational. And so Chelsea is one of my favorite stories right now, because I've just been able to watch her life unfold and change for such a good. So She Brews Coffee House, we get to serve up what we call truly transformative coffee. Yes, so we have 3 locations. We have a location at First and Lewis, and we have a location at 2 locations in Claremore. That's where our foundation is. How many of you have heard that Oklahoma was number 1 for incarcerating women? Yeah. Do you know now we're number 3? Woo, woo. Yes, we're number 3. That number is coming down. Isn't that good? Do you know what we're number 1 for? We have the lowest recidivism rate in the world. They say in the nation, but we already know. The United States incarcerates more people than anywhere in the world. So if we're number 1 in the nation for the lowest recidivism rate, meaning we have the lowest amount of people returning to prison at this point, then we know it's in the world. How cool is that? That's what we're number 1 for. I love that number. So, but you know what? We have lots of programs I hear that you guys help Operation Hope a lot, which is great. So Oklahoma has turned out to be such a state that I'm going to tell you, you really have to try hard to fail. You don't have to fail if you don't want to. We have help. We have help. We really do have help. You know, I think one of our biggest struggles right now is our people with mental health issues that are homeless on the street. That's truly a crisis. But beyond that, if you are addicted to drugs and you want help, we have we have Grand Mental Health, we have CREOKS, we have Family Children's Services, where we can get people into treatment. You have John 3:16. That was one of the most amazing organizations that helped so many men with their inpatient treatment program. You have She Brews. You have so many programs. You have Operation Hope. You have Exodus House. You have so many programs. You have the Inside Out. You have the Muddy Paws, where the dogs are groomed. We have so many programs in our state right now. That's why we're number 1 for the lowest amount of people returning to prison. But we still have an epidemic, if you've heard of fentanyl. We still have an epidemic crisis that's unbelievable. But there is help. You know, most of our people go to prison for drugs and anything to do with the drug. It says in our problem that women are also vulnerable to arrest because of high rates at which they experience undiagnosed and untreated trauma, substance abuse, mental illness. But the underlying cause for incarceration begins with a lack of employment and economic opportunity, poverty. Poverty is a huge reason of why people go to prison. Why? Well, one, they are very dependent upon a public defender's office that is overworked and underpaid for sure. They can't, so they struggle affording legal representation. We're still very punitive. We're very punitive to women. And I have a client right now that I'm advocating for who she received a 70-year sentence. Okay, 70 years. She went to prison at 40 years old, and she's received a 70-year sentence for failure to protect her children from a man who sexually assaulted them from a relationship. Okay, he got 20 years for the sexual assault. She got 40 for failure to protect. Okay, so we have a really huge thing in our state with failure to protect. We have women who, a woman went to work and left her 3 children, 2 sons and a little girl, with the husband or the boyfriend to watch the kids. He'd never been abusive to the boys. That day he actually broke the little girl's bone in her leg, her femur. He got 2 years in Oklahoma County Jail, and the mother did 25 years at Maple Bassett. Failure to protect. We're so disproportionated sometimes in our sentencing. The woman that just got 70 years, you would not believe this child's story. I know her sister. Her sister did 18 years in prison for murder. And these little girls grew up here in Tulsa, went to school here in Tulsa, and their mother was in and out of prison, and she would leave them with this man, their stepdad, who began sexually abusing them when they were 6 and 7 years old. And this went on. They went to school with dirty clothes. They were the target of bullying because their clothes were dirty. They were dirty. They had trouble sitting in their seats, if you can imagine that. The things that these children went through. The 7-year-old became pregnant at 12. That's how it was found out what was happening. And the 6-year-old was 11 years old at that time. So all those years, all this sexual abuse. The foster system, DHS, finally gets called in. They go into foster care, but they decide to leave the children with the next of kin, a grandmother. The 11-year-old, that day, her birth dad that she never met, he came and picked her up. And she was so excited to meet her dad. He took her down a dirt road. He raped her. He threw her out on the side of the road and called her a piece of trash, where his friend picked her up. And from 11 to 18, she's the child on the milk carton because she's missing. Until her mom finally gets out of prison, gets a gun against the law, but she goes to find her child. And that man let that child go that day at 18. So yes, she was prone to marry abusive men. But 70-year sentence for failure to protect, I have to ask, who protected her? And how did she know better? But that's part of what I do in this state. I'm an advocate. I hear stories, I know truths, and I expose them. And I tell the stories, because someday somebody's going to rise up and say, I want to help. And that's what I do. So that's one of my parts of my solution. I'm no longer a part of the problem, I'm the solution. And I tell the devil every day, you should have killed me when you had a chance. Because now look out, devil. You go after my kids, I'm going after yours. I'm on a mission. So Brews, I'm proud to say this, we are in an Oklahoma-based coffee house, roastery, and transition program. We are dedicated to disrupting cycles of incarceration, and restoring families. We believe that through second chances, open arms, and quality coffee, we can change lives. Our mission is to equip, empower women transitioning out of incarceration by providing stable employment, safe and affordable housing, life skills, mentors, and by doing so, we inspire hope, we disrupt cycles of incarceration, and we restore families. So Brews looks like this. We're Brews, but we have two programs. We have a coffee roaster, and then we have the Transitional program. So we equip and empower these women. Employment at our coffee house provides the women we serve with valuable life skills and job training. Our coffee is good. Our coffee is good, and we believe that it works to help improve the quality of life. And the same with our housing. We have residential housing and program support for women and children. So one of the things I do drives my board crazy. I have one of the best boards around. They are amazing. But they don't understand sometimes that once you raise up these women and these children, I'm not quite ready for them to leave. So what we do is we have a thing called family housing, and this is something that we're always increasing. It's been kind of a little bit tough because the market, how dare the market go up on housing? But when a woman works to get her children back, I want to place that mom. She has mentors, she has employment. We want her to get an education. We have some partnerships with education systems, TCC, Rogers State University. We have some partnerships there. And we want her to remain in a house with the children. And so I do request that if you get your children back and you want to live here till your youngest child turns 18 and graduates high school, I'm going to give you permission to do that. Now that could be up to 10 to 12 years. But you know what? The outcome for these children, the trajectory of their life is going to be so changed. And really, that's all I care about. I want to save kids. People think I'm in it to save the women. I'm in it to save kids. I don't want those 28,000 children going to prison. And the way that I know how to do it is get your mom, get her on her feet, provide you safe housing, provide your mom employment, provide her an education opportunity, but keep you under our wings until we're confident that you're ready to fly, and trying to keep them that way. And so that means I have to add houses all the time. So right now we have 10 houses. We will able to acquire a home here in Tulsa in 2021, an 8,000 square foot home. Yes, go God. Yeah, I love that home. Imagine 8,000 square foot home. But in that home, right now we have 12 moms and 7 children. And we got a grant to create a playground for the kids, because the one thing I love whenever I pull up, I always hold my ear, because I just want to hear children laughing. I want to see laughter restored to a broken-hearted child. Why? Because I saw it with my own kids. Now my daughter's an RN at St. Francis. My youngest is IT at Dish, and my oldest he works in manufacturing at the Pryor manufacturing plant. My kids got their life back on track. They were not a statistic, and my grandkids will not be a statistic. And that's what, as far as I can reach, that's what I want to do with these families. So our client cycle, we, of course, begin with the prison. We bring them to housing. We employ them. We get them mentors. And then we focus on reunification and graduation, our impact. We've served more than 250 women that have gone through our program, and at least 155 children have been restored to their parents. 95% of our clients have gone on to live successful lives in our community, and that's what we want. On any given day, we have 25 moms, 42 kids, and it says 6 men on our video, but we actually have 7 men. I'm telling you what, We've always just served women, and in the last 2 years, we started serving men. And what an amazing thing it is to see men rise up and serve the Lord. And sometimes it's easy, if you haven't been in those shoes, it's easy to take that role with men for granted. Because I know whenever I got out of prison and came to stand in the gap, I had 6 couples on my team. I can tell you in my entire life, from the time I was as far back as I can remember, 5 or 6 years old, till I came to stand in the gap, I'd only met a couple of men in my life, a few men that loved Jesus, who did not sexually molest or abuse kids. How is that? I'm like, what kind of world did I live in that was our norm? And then I got to meet these men who really loved Jesus, who really loved their families, who loved their wife, who loved their children, who did not harm them. I can't believe that sometimes there's this dark side, that influences everything you think. But knowing that and knowing the value of a dad. I shared my dad walked out when I was 9. My dad actually came to live with me when he was 87. He called me, he's like, hey, I'm going through my 7th divorce. I have nowhere to live. Can I live with you? I'm like, I said to my husband, he's a bitter soul. No, he can't live with me. He's so angry at everything. He's mad every day at the whole world. No, he can't live with me. And of course, my husband's like, well, pray about it. So then I was quickly reminded to honor your mother and father. And there wasn't no but to it. So I said, God, I don't owe him anything. He never cared if I was hungry. He didn't care about the sexual abuse. He didn't care about nothing. But I owe you everything. So I felt like the Lord had said, if you let your dad into your life, I'm going to help you to go to another layer of forgiveness, and I'm going to lead him to the Lord. Well, my dad lived with me for 19 months, was diagnosed with lung cancer, went on hospice. My dad's very last words were, I'm going to put my life in Jesus' hands. So he asked Jesus to come into his life at 88 years old. And my friends were praying for me that, because he was going on hospice, and I was like, how am I going to take care of him? First of all, I'm a drug addict. I can't have this medicine around me. And I don't like him, right? I don't like him. I'm only serving him because of who he is. And my friend said, I'm going to pray that you have compassion and grace. And I'm going to tell you, compassion and grace washed over me. And God honored his word. My dad got saved, and he took me to another level of forgiveness. And I was my dad's nurse for 24 hours a day for 2 weeks. And then God took him home to glory. And as God took him home to glory, I was reading to my dad about the prodigal son. I said, you're fixing to have a party that you ain't never seen before. And God's going to put a ring on your finger. He's going to kill the fatted calf. There's a party coming, Dad. There's a party. And we just prayed and worshiped my dad into the kingdom. God did that, But living out these examples for these women, because sometimes they come to me and they have a hardship with their family, right? There's been a lot of abuse. You don't just end up there somewhere sometimes. So our impact, they put this in this little thing for me, but we've gotten better at a few things. We've gotten better at fundraising. We've gotten better at, we only started we're getting ready to have our 3rd fundraiser this year. We only had 3, this will be our 3rd fundraiser. But God has brought an amazing team around us to make this happen. And so then it's like people want to know, well, how can we help? Well, the best way to help, there's a couple of ways. If you ever thought about in your last, like in our last 30 years, who am I going to invest in? Well, if you wanted to invest in women and children's lives, there's an opportunity to be a mentor I do a good training. I train you well. I walk with you through it. You do get to do hands-on you get to do hands-on with them, get to meet with them on a regular basis. You don't give them any money. You don't rescue them. You pray for them. That's the biggest assignment is prayer. We have our coffee shop, I said, like at First and Lewis. And not only do we sell coffee, we sell inventory. We have shirts and sweatshirts, and we have all kinds of stuff. So there's always a need for support, whether it's, just by showing up. If you haven't been, has anybody in here have y'all been to Sheary's Coffee Shop? Anybody? I see a few hands. Well, I'll tell you, if you go in there, honestly, you're going to get a treat. These women love to tell you what Jesus Christ has done in their life. We are not ashamed of the gospel. We are not ashamed of Jesus Christ. In fact, we love Jesus Christ because he changed our lives. We have a great web page. Oh my goodness. Anybody like web pages? I looked at our web page the other day because they've been revamping it. It's shebrews.org. And I couldn't believe how good it looked. I quickly emailed my board and I was like, I think I know who did this, but can I be sure? Did a young lady named Marley rebuild this? And they said yes. I said, wow, what a beautiful job she's done. So, yeah, that's my little PowerPoint. That's pretty much my life story, kind of. Now as I'm focusing on this strength to strength, looking at, I'd like to think in the next 10 years of my life that I'll be really investing in people and pass this torch to keep this going, because I really do want Oklahoma. I'm proud that we're number 3. When we were number 1, and I'm so proud that we're number 3, but I want to keep going down. It's been a real honor that the governor appointed me to be on the board of directors for the Department of Corrections. It's a position that I hold very proudly. I get to hire wardens now. Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. And just thankful that he took a chance, because he said I was the first inmate in the nation that's ever served on the board in this position, and I'm working towards the parole board is my ultimate goal. We, just about 2 weeks ago, we graduated 18 men from 4-year seminary. So these men went to OBU, 4-year seminary behind razor wire at Lexington Prison for Men. They did the 4 years. They had to do Greek. They said they had to write 117 papers. These men worked hard to get their degree, and the plan is that we will disperse these men at other men's prisons throughout Oklahoma with the hope of people with lived experience that are doing long sentences will go onto a prison yard and will be able to minimize the violence and raise up hope. And what a beautiful vision for our prison system for Oklahoma. Hasn't always been this way. And so I'm very excited to have gotten to witness that and very hopeful of what this can look like. One of our wardens said the other day, you will not change your yard till you heal trauma. No, because everybody's trying not to feel. You're not going to reduce the drugs. You're not going to reduce the violence until you heal the trauma, until the heart heals. How do you heal the heart? Jesus, along with trauma-based classes. This is how you heal the heart. You don't get a different action until the heart heals. And so I'm really thankful that in our future we could be moving that way. Since our program has been started, we do have 7.7%, and this is over a 15-year period, 7.7 recidivism rate, but 93% of people are successful. Why? Their hearts are healing. They've had mentors that have invested in them. The love of God expressed through the people of God changes lives. How could you not have a good turnout? when Jesus is a part of it. And so, but I want to open the floor up to questions. You have a few minutes of questions. Thank you for being so attentive to my, um, yeah.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Akers?
Rhonda, would you share with us just a bit about how you felt when you were appointed to the parole board?
Well, greatly honored, and then honored that they put me as part of the executive team to interview wardens, because I know what I'm looking for, and so I'm loving every moment of that.
Could you tell us a little bit? Could you tell us a little bit about what's involved in the every other week small group for volunteers?
Yes, thank you for asking. So in the mentorship program, you meet at least twice a month face-to-face, at least. So every other week you will meet with a client, and there's usually 2 to 4, maybe 5 people that meet. And we have we call it kind of like an accountability group. We start with prayer, and then we always keep a prayer journal, because we like to keep up with how God's answering prayers, not just for the person you're serving, but for everybody on the team. Where do you need to see God? Where do you want to see God at? And so we all pray, and then there's things that we help her to set goals. Financial goals, goals to get her children back, goals to future goals. So it's a really kind of a goal-focused thing. You talk about what's your high for the week, and this is for everybody in the group. What's your low for the week? And we're going to pray about that. And then we just see her growing, because when she comes out, I make a joke, but when a woman comes out of prison, she wants her kids back, she wants a good job, she wants a nice home with a white picket fence, she wants the husband, she wants the car, she wants the vacation, she wants the benefits at work, and she wants it all in 7 days. All right? And so what we do as a team is we help her pace herself, right? You don't need a car before you get your license, right? You don't need a car before you get your license, and you've got to be able to afford insurance, right? And so we help them kind of pace themselves. And of course you want your children back. But if you get your children back and you don't have transportation, that's not going to work well. Kids do not like to walk. I mean, they are not going to walk to the grocery store and carry all the bags back. It's just not that era. And so really helping them to determine what is a reasonable goal that we pray for, and a reasonable opportunity. Now, often these women are in the courts, and so sometimes that means maybe you go to court with her. You don't have to say anything, just your presence. You'd be so surprised at just what your presence would do. We had one mom that went, and they were going to terminate the rights of her children, and she'd been a drug addict, so there was no question about would this be a good idea. But she was changing. So she went with her Stand in the Gap team, and they prayed right at the court door outside, Lord, show up and show off. They went in, and the district attorney in that case could not find the paperwork. So he said, come back in 30 days. They went back in 30 days. Her team went with her. They prayed again. And the court said that day, we think it's in the best interest of these children that we restore them temporarily to their mom, and we'll see how this goes. So this mom today, her and her husband and her children are at the Sand Springs Methodist Church. Her husband that she married is the pastor. She's a pastor's wife there at Sand Springs Methodist Church. Her husband is finishing up seminary, and they have children. And they Stand in the Gap as a huge part of that church. And it was just about people just showing up. The volunteers, they didn't have to say anything in court. They just showed up and prayed. It's those things. When we invite God to show up, he shows up. And he likes to, every once in a while, show off. He's a little show off. But that's kind of what the thing is. And sometimes, though, it might be you're running to the mall and you don't want to go by yourself, so you invite her to go with you. You just make a friend, be a friend, lead that friend to Christ, and enrich their life in that walk that serves Jesus.
Rhonda, I'm Connie McFarland. I was involved in Resonance, so I'm just in awe of your success. I'm just beyond. But I have a question about the technicality of getting voting rights back. I know that seems a little strange, but because of that involvement with Resonance, I've written letters to the governor, I think. Is it different now, and how does it work, and why is it so important to be able to vote?
Yes. Well, of course it's important to be able to vote, because who's leading you? The people we're voting for. So voting is still a big issue. You know, many states in our nation, once you become a felon, you do not get your voting rights back. Florida is one of those states that once you become a felon, you do not get your voting rights back. Oklahoma, there's a struggle. So whenever I got out of prison, I got out and I had 10 years on probation. And for 10 years, I couldn't vote because I had to complete every day of probation. I had to pay every fine that had to be paid before I could ever get my voting rights back. So for 10 years, I waited to vote. And that's how it still is. You have to completely discharge your sentence, and you have to have everything paid off. Now, there's a chance in the future we may change that. If you know, sometimes, anybody in here work for the DA's office? Okay, well, that's good. No. So the district attorney's office is hugely funded by fines. Okay, fines. So it's like the fox is guarding the hen house, all right? So their bonuses, their raises, their budget includes fines covering a lot of that. So this year in the legislature, we just got a law passed that says we're looking for a different avenue for funding for the DA's office, because we need the DA's office. They do an important job. It's just that they've been getting their funding from the wrong places. And so now we're looking at, instead of coming out of prison, if you can imagine coming out of prison with $60,000 in fines, you have nothing to your name except a few letters and a few books, but you have $60,000 in fines. Or you have $25,000 in fines. And I'm telling you, the fines do not match the crime. It's ridiculous, some of the fines that these people are burdened with that they can't get out of. And they tell you there's no debtor's prison. That's not true. We don't call it debtor's prison. We call it failure to comply. So you fail to comply to pay your fines, so you know you're going to prison. But we are passing a law that says if you make consistent payments for 4 years, that they're going to wipe the slate clean. You know what? In which we're talking $50 to $100 a month that they have to budget. And so, but doing that and wiping the slate clean, because some of the people with $60,000 fines, they're never going to get to vote. Because you can't get out under that burden, even $25,000 in fines. I talked to people, Ottawa County, anybody familiar with Miami, Oklahoma? Right? There's hardly no jobs up there or anything, but you got people coming out of prison there, from sentence there, that owe the DA's office $25,000. Like, how are they going to rise up when all you've got is casinos and McDonald's? It doesn't, and you can't work in a casino. So your options become so limited. And so we keep the population down where they can't vote. But with this law being passed at 4 years, you pay your fines up for 4 years, even though you don't pay them off. In 4 years, the slate's going to be wiped clean. And so they're moving towards that. We can help them maybe get their voting rights back faster.
Well, when you say fines, is that what they call court costs?
Mm-hmm.
I just got 2 parking tickets, and the court costs are going to be much worse than the parking.
Yes. Well, they stack them. It's like, okay, you have a fine, and then you have a court cost, and then you have restitution is important. Pay restitution. Yes. If you stole from somebody, pay them back. Restitution. And I can see a fine on top of it. But $25,000 fine? Whenever it was a $1,000 crime? okay, pay the $1,000 back and get a punishment. But $25,000 is excessive. And that's where we've been for so long, for over 30 years. And it was acceptable. I mean, really, number one for incarcerating women for over 30 years. And Oklahoma was like, that's okay. Well, because most people didn't know it, but legislature knew it. You know, and that's why even in going forward in the next election coming up in 2026, these are very important things for me to ask people who are running for governor. You know, Frank Keating started the very first private prison and invested 51% stock in it. Wait, you're the governor. Why are you owning a private prison? Oh, because it's lucrative. You ever watch a show called American Greed? It's amazing what people do at people's expense. It doesn't, maybe it fills your pocket, but it takes away from everybody else's pocket. You know, 30,000 children, and 7 out of 10 of those will end up in prison. No.
Is there any hope of getting away from the public or the prison profit system?
I do have to tell you, under Governor Stitt, he came into office and we had 8 private prisons. And Oklahoma, I don't know if it's hit the paper yet, but we're just purchasing our last private prison back. And that was a private prison at Lawton. It holds 2,000 men. And, of course, I mean, trace the greed of the campaign contributions that these private prisons made. And then we end up building the largest private prison in our state in your area. Is that coincidence, or is that campaign contribution, influence, right? And so the state right now, I heard this week that we had made the final deal to purchase the private prison at Lawton back, because private prisons, when they're for profit, if you've owned a company for profit, you always want to cut your budget so you can have more profit. But you don't want to, if you're a business person, you don't want to cut your quality for profit, right? Because you got to keep that. But if you're a private prison, you don't care if you cut your quality or not. These people don't matter. They don't matter. We're going to feed you on $1.27 a day, which is a lot of oatmeal with no sugar, no milk. You just get pasty oatmeal, which, thank God it's something, but no flavoring, and when you figure out, how do you feed someone for $1.27 a day?
Okay, here's a good question. Who pardoned you?
Governor Stitt.
Governor Stitt? Oh.
Governor Stitt pardoned me, and then he appointed me to the board of directors. And Governor Stitt has, a lot of people don't like Governor Stitt, but I guess some of his businesses are controversial, but and when it comes to criminal justice reform, he's been very, very good at that. When he came in, he did the largest release of nonviolent offenders. I mean, we had mothers who failed drug court in Delaware County who were sentenced to 40 years. 40 years. Not for rape, not for a gun, not for a violent crime, because they failed drug court. Hello? 40 years, okay, and then my question was, what happened to her children? She had 4 kids. She's a single mom in Delaware County. Where are the kids? And when I told him that, he said, I met him on the campaign trail, and I started telling him these stories, and he said, that can't be true. You're running for governor. You get people in office. Find out if it's true or not. And if it's true, do something about it.
Last question. Who do you get your coffee beans from?
Oh, that's a great question. Where do we get our coffee beans from? Well, we look for, this is the funniest thing, we look for plantations around the world. We really like female-ran plantations because third world countries, females are not esteemed high. And so but we esteem them high. And so we look for female-ran plantations. Now, not all of our coffee comes from female-ran plantations, but several of our beans do come from female-ran plantations. We bring our beans in from around the world. They get picked green, and they bring them to us. And then the most amazing thing, they're picked up at a port because they come in on a ship, picked up at a port. They come out of New Orleans. We have a truck that picks up and brings them to Little Rock, and then a truck that picks up in Little Rock and brings them to Tulsa. They're coming from the other coast, the same thing. We have a system picked up where we get our beans in. We roast beans every Friday fresh. So if you like fresh coffee beans, we always have Colombia, we have Ethiopian, we have Kenyan, we have Brazil, we have, right now we're doing a special we got some beans from Rwanda, Uganda, Nicaragua, Honduras. We have a mission trip that's on our way to Guatemala, so we've got beans coming back from Guatemala. So yeah, we bring them in and roast them, and then we either sell retail or wholesale. Or by the cup. Yes. You know, and it's amazing because I do have to give God all the credit. I did not have the intelligence to do this. All I had was a vision and just took a step. And then every step of the way, when I thought I couldn't do it anymore, God sent people in that had just the right skills. And so people don't like me to say God did this, but I'm telling you, God did this. I didn't even know how to do a spreadsheet. God did all of this. He connected all these things. How do you connect with plantations around the world? I don't know. But God does. And God did. Isn't that the funnest thing? Yes, yes. So thank you so much for letting me come share with y'all today. Yeah.